Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, YouTube. Good morning. Good morning. I am Tamara Johnson Sheely. Good morning. Good morning, Georgia. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am Tamara Johnson Sheely. Today is Friday, January the 18th. I am waiting on my trusty co-host to join me on this morning's broadcast where we talk about Georgia politics and all things Georgia. It's a gloomy Friday morning, but we are here this morning. Let's see where I think one of my trusty co-hosts just came into the broadcast. Let's see. Good morning, Robby.
Good morning, Miss Samara. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Good morning.
It is gloomy and gray.
It is, and I think everybody's moving real slow this morning. It's just kind of one of those days. Technology sometimes isn't our friend when it's so gloomy out.
Me included, slow.
Yeah, it's one of those days. It definitely happens. So good morning. We're going to start this broadcast off this morning. We're going to talk about what's happening under the Gold Dome. I'm sure you have a lot to share about what's going on in the city of Atlanta. Robby, it's never a dull moment in Georgia. People sleep on us because they think we're a little, we're a little country, it's rural. But you know what? There's never a dull moment in Georgia.
There's so much going on, and it's fitting that the weather is gloomy and gray because it's gloomy and gray in politics. People aren't even calling it politics anymore. They're calling it politricks.
Politricks. It's a pile of tricks. It's poly, more than one, lots of tricks. It's everything, Robby.
Hashtag politricks. It's really, I'm a regular resident. So I didn't run for Senate like you. I don't have a show. I'm literally a regular.
You're right here with me. We have
But I see Trap King just came on. We should bring him on for an update if he wants to. If you're watching Sterling, Atlanta's original Trap King, come on and give the update about the court case that you went to on the young man who was charged with cruelty to the cat in Southwest Atlanta. Because I heard about that, and the update in the court is interesting. It has a very interesting racial component on how different cultures, specifically around race and income, see that type of event from opposite spectrums. Wow. And so really get the person to really cover it because he's there in court.
Well, I hope he joins us. If he sees us, he can jump on and be a part of the broadcast. We always like engagement, and we always love updates. So good morning, good morning, good morning. Okay, so I'm going to jump into these Georgia bills, Robby. You know what? We are in the legislative session. It started on this past Monday, January the 14th. So our session is in full swing. I'm going to start with some bills that I've been watching. We have currently there's 67 bills in the legislature that I am tracking as of today. But it was about 58 bills as of last night when I started doing my research. So I'm going to start out with House Bill 21 just to give everybody a political update of what's happening right here in Georgia. I'm telling you, it's never a dull moment. So House Bill 21 was introduced, and with this bill, it adds an additional judge to the Superior Court for the Gwinnett judicial system. Right now, they have 10. They are going to add one more, which makes it 11. It's a bipartisan bill. Obviously, having that odd number breaks the tie in so many ways. So hopefully, this is a great bill, which it looks like it is. The legislators that are on there, I know a couple of them. So yeah, I'm hopeful that this will be something that we can get initiated right here in Gwinnett County. House Bill 22, it deals with the public utilities, a broadband bill. Interesting, Robby, there is actually a few other broadband bills in legislature this session. I'm curious to see what this is all about. Is it the rural areas that that they're trying to address? But right now, HB 22 is a broadband bill. Senate Bill 2 is also out there. It's also a broadband bill. House Bill 23 is another broadband bill, so it's actually 4 of them. SB 2, SB 22, and House Bill 23. There's actually another one. I'm going to get to it in just a second. So right now I'm telling you about 3, but there's a 4th one. HR 17 is the amending the United States Constitution. I wish we had a Constitution attorney that could come on and talk to us about some of these bills that we really need to dive into. Actually, me being a law student, I can kind of do the research and the homework, but because I'm new into law school, it may take me a little longer. So if we have any constitutional attorneys out there, chime in, reach out. My email address is tamarasheely@gmail.com. Let us connect with us. We'd love to hear your perspective on some of these bills that require a whole nother level of research. Yeah, because law school is actually teaching me to ask the right questions, so I can definitely dive in with them. HR 18, which I thought was real interesting. This bill is about a gentleman, Mr. Jakeith Bendre, and I actually looked it up because there was a compensation component to this, and I'm like, what is this all about? So in this particular piece of legislation, again, HR 18, there was an unexpected delay in his appeal following his conviction. Mr. Robinson served 19 years, 11 months, and 29 days in prison. The Court of Appeals finally reversed his conviction and he was released after serving 19 years, 11 months, and 29 days in prison. So there's a compensation component attached to this from the state of Georgia. So I thought this was a very interesting piece of legislation. So I definitely love to hear more about this and follow this one as well. HR 21, Cervical Cancer Day here in Georgia. It made it official January the 19th. It was enacted on the 15th. So January the 9th, January the 16th is Cervical Cancer Awareness Day. So I thought that was a great piece of legislation to start off the session right. We have SB 15, Keeping Georgia Schools Safe. So that bill is about school threats and the terrorism and everything that we're having, making sure that the schools have a school safety plan. So again, that's SB 15. Senate Bill 16, Interstate Medical Licensure Compact Act, thought was quite interesting. It provides a streamlined process that allows physicians to become licensed in multiple states. What I was reading, it's talked about if you have a patient that's here and you're from another state, I think there needed to be some sort of processing where these physicians can actually practice medicine and continue to work on their patients. So I'd like to hear more about that bill. Any doctors out there, anybody in the medical field that wants to chime in, please do on the broadcast. We love to hear your perspective on what's happening right here in Georgia. SB 17, the public service, another broadband bill. So yes, it is 4. So SB 2, HB 22, HB 23, and now SB 17. So there's 4 broadband bills, and I'm curious to know why they're breaking them up into smaller bills. I guess they want to get past whatever they can in regards to broadband, but I definitely love to hear more. Any of our tech people out there, chime in and let's talk about these broadband bills. SR 12, sales tax for educational purposes. It's another school security initiative, school security projects for the physical protection of students and school personnel. It's actually a constitutional amendment, and the amendment reads, shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended so as to provide that sales tax for educational purposes may be used and expended for school security projects. So it's a tax, and just interesting that I address Democrats and Republicans. So it's interesting that, they want to create this new tax to address school safety. I think there's probably enough money in Georgia as it is to definitely address this. We also have school security. So where's the money with that involved? So I'm curious to hear more about that.
I agree with you because, the schools that are going to need the security are going to be in certain areas, and schools that aren't going to need the security. So are they making us pay for schools that have been divested and now we have to pay them for the security too? Yeah. Buckhead's not going to need security, right? Buckhead already fundraises for their schools, even if they're public. That's how they taxes compensate. But the schools that have been divested in divested regions, they're going to need security. Mm-hmm. So now they're going to make us pay for our own security after they divested in the area.
Quite interesting, right? I definitely love to hear more. We'll keep an eye on this, Robby, so we can kind of see how this thing moves along and what happens. SR 14 is the adjournment bill that really gives a timeline of how session will actually every day in the Georgia legislature is not a legislative day. They're calendar days, so they count them individually. So there's 40 legislative days in a legislative cycle here in Georgia. So just to kind of give you guys a little history or update on how the Georgia legislature works. There's 40 legislative days. They're not calendar days. So Monday, January the 14th was the first day. January the 15th was legislative day 2. Wednesday the 16th was day 3. Yesterday the 17th was day 4. Day 5 for the Georgia legislature will be Monday the 28th. Day 6 will be January the 29th. Day 7 will be January the 30th. They'll take some time off. They'll come back on January the 5th. Will be legislative day 8. February the 6th will be legislative day 9. February the 7th will be legislative day 10. And February the 8th will be legislative day 11. So again, it's 40 legislative days in the legislative cycle. And this is how they're counting their days. And that's what SR 14 was giving you the timeline for how the legislature is going to run thus far. SR 17, it was enacted on the 16th, is Youth Village Georgia Day. So they have their own day right here now in Georgia. HB 20, crimes and offenses. Okay, so this bill, let's take a look at it real quick. It's crimes and offenses. Persons convicted of family violence cannot possess firearms. So that is HB 20 that's on the table here right here in the Georgia legislature. HR 16, United States Constitution, to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. We're going to get somebody to come on in a couple of weeks to talk to us about the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment. Women we still don't have, Robby, we still are not equal citizens here in the United States. So Virginia just passed the ERA in their Senate, and it's on to the House. So we'll keep an eye on Virginia to see if they are one of the states that join. You have to have 3/4, and if I'm saying this right, I can't wait to get somebody on here who knows more about this, because I know just enough to kind of navigate. But we'll get somebody on that can talk about it. So Virginia is trying to pass the ERA. Georgia has an ERA bill as well. So we want to make sure that we women are treated as equal and as fair citizens right here in these United States. SB 12. It requires that certain health clubs have a defibrillator on site. Defibrillator, I had to look it up. I was like, I thought it was what it was, with the heart. So a defibrillator uses an electric shock to reset the electric state of the heart. So if anybody collapses and they've had a heart attack, it's requiring that certain athletic clubs have, or fitness clubs, health clubs have a defibrillator on site. Let's see what else we got here. SB 3, medical assistance, and this bill is about medical assistance for individuals that have an income that is equal to or less than 138% of the federal poverty level. So they're trying to kind of circumvent, I guess, those that are just really, have no health care at all. So this is a bill that's on the table right here in the Georgia legislature, and we'll keep our eye on this one. SB 10, possession of certain quantities. It's a marijuana bill, y'all. Look, we got something on the table with marijuana. So SB 10, we'll keep our eye on this one. Possession of certain quantities of marijuana makes it a misdemeanor. I think we go from 1 ounce to 2 ounces. So it says, it shall be unlawful for any person to possess or have under his or her control 2 ounces or less of marijuana. It makes it a misdemeanor. So let's keep our eye on that. So 2 ounces or less could be a misdemeanor right here in the entire state of Georgia. So that is, again, SB 10. SB 11 is a voter bill. We're gonna keep our eye on that, because all the stuff that happened here with voters, the voting systems, and these past elections, we definitely want to keep our eye on this. So it's addressing the term of felony involving moral turpitude. So we'll keep our eye on that. Senator Harold Jones introduced it, so we want to invite him to the broadcast and give us some details about this bill. Let's see if we can get him on to really talk about his bill that addresses what happened here in addressing our voters and the voting system. SB 13. Robby, let's check this one out. I just kind of combed through it briefly, but I'm hoping somebody will help us follow the money and really dive in. So SB 13, Robby, they are asking for more money, our legislators. So the lieutenant governor goes from $54,920 to $135,000. Each member of the General Assembly is going from $16,200 to $29,908. So anybody that can follow the money can help us kind of navigate this piece of legislation. I'd love to hear more about it. The Speaker of the House goes from $17,800 to $135,000. The President Pro Temp of the Senate, $4,800, goes from $4,800 to $35,900. And there's something to do with there's some sort of formula with the salaries and the allowances that they're trying to adjust. But I definitely want somebody to join us or help us navigate this piece of legislation. Again, it's SB 13. And again, the President of the Pro Temp of the Senate, he goes from $4,800 to $35,900. The Speaker Pro Temp of the House goes from $4,800 to $35,900 as well. So I want somebody that knows what these formulas are all about and these salaries and these allowances. Let's figure out like what kind of increase is this and what is this all about. So let's definitely we'll get somebody to help us with navigate that piece of legislation as well.
And keep in mind too, those monies that they receive on salary, that is certainly not the only income for these folks. These people have nonprofit. Go ahead.
Yeah, and yeah, they have with these. You're right, Robby. These salaries, and then there's allowances that they get. But this formula, I think, is getting rid of the allowances and just giving them a straight salary. But go ahead. You're saying, were you going to say like nonprofits? What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
The majority of these politicians, whether it's senators, council people, etc., even media people, have separate quote unquote side hustles. You know, in the street. That's how we would say it. But they have multiple streams of income, including nonprofits, including events. People, they do fundraisers, people donate to them, whether it's their campaigns. And how that stuff is cashed and tracked, sometimes people give cash. You know, as you know, people will walk up to even people running or people in office and hear about a project that they're doing and hand cash to them or hand a check. And that income is not always reported. So a lot of the times the excuse is, well, we only earn this much, we need this much to live. But really, that's not your sole income, you know, because of this platform that you have as a result of the position that you hold and the influence that you hold, whether it's consulting, etc. And in Atlanta, for example, you know, our mayor earns over 100,000, our city council's over 60,000, our commissioners are over 40,000, well above, right? But then when you look at the city in terms of north and south and below 20 and the income disparity in our regions, right? Under 20, we have neighborhoods that earn less than $15,000 median income, less. So under 20, if you look at our 4 council people, that would be Carla Smith, Joyce Shepard in District 12, Cleta Winslow in District 1, and Marcy Overstreet, who took over Keisha Lance Bottom's district. These people are all earning over $60,000 as city council, not including the additional streams of income. So how does someone like that relate to their own constituency who's earning $15,000? They're all homeowners. The ladies are all homeowners, and they all drive a vehicle, and they're all gainfully employed. How on earth is that representative of your demographic?
Yeah, exactly, Robby. Good morning, David.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Broadcast.
I feel so weird when I see someone and I'm excited because of like doom and gloom. How's this happening? Hi.
It's like we have to be each other's sunshine, Robby. I'm gonna go into the next bill. So there's SB 14. Where the Georgia Legislature retirement system. There's a bill. We need to follow the money there. They're changing the retirement system. I'd like to hear more about that as well. SB 9, the invasion of privacy. it deals with coercion. So there's a bill about sexual extortion. So there's something probably that's happening that we probably don't know a whole lot about. I don't know about that one. And my last one for this week, it is the president of the members of the General Assembly. And this bill number, is SR 2, Senate Resolution 2. The members of the General Assembly and the president of the Senate shall receive the basic annual compensation in an amount each year equal to the median annual household income for citizens of the state of Georgia. This is like justifying that they need to have a basic annual compensation that's equal to the median annual household income for citizens of the state of Georgia. I guess that answers your question, Robby. Like, how does that 60,000? Are people in your district making 60,000 plus? No, they're not.
Definitely not.
There it is. So that will be my legislative update this morning. And Miss Robby, what's going on over in the ATL?
Well, who knows where to start? So we'll just jump in and cover it. And feel free, let's make this interactive. Otherwise, I'm just gonna look like I'm just talking trash about Atlanta. Please help. Please help. So we had a former chief of staff under Mayor Reed's administration faint in the court. Not even with the actual finding, but basically she fainted just based on the thought of how many years she would get in prison for accepting gifts inappropriately. And this made the news.
Who fainted? Say that again. She fainted.
The chief of staff, former aide to Mayor Kasim Reed, and it was Katrina Parks Taylor. She was under federal investigation. You know, the feds are all over Atlanta. Literally, like the feds are all over Atlanta. Everybody in Buckhead and everybody kind of in larger business circles knows this. Mm-hmm. And they're basically like, thrilled because they're sick of, I guess, what's called the cronyism, but it's really, or when you give your family, favors and stuff. What is it called? There's a term for it. Not favoritism, but in politics. That's it. So they're sick of it, but really it's on both ends. The Good Old Boy Network does that. And then in Atlanta, when our elite, African-American community affluent took over, they're kind of doing that. And that brings up, it's a repetitive, kind of the pedagogy of the oppressed. You repeat what was done to you, kind of, instead of starting something new. And apparently Maynard Jackson was asked about this, like, well, are you giving contracts to your friends? And he replied, well, who else would I give it to? So it's just, this is like a historic David was there. David was there. What? But because that's kind of the way it is, right? I guess, so it was kind of like, well, who else? Am I not going to give it to my friends? He was matter of fact about it. Go ahead, David.
Going all the way back to Thomas Jefferson. He made all sorts of deals with James Madison to sell land, to buy James Madison's land, to establish the University of Virginia. I know because I'm a graduate of the University of Virginia. Dirty deals are I don't mean to throw up my hands about it. I'm just saying that this is how this is how people exercise power, and create networks and all of these other aspects of the what's hidden from the ordinary citizen.
Well, I agree with you. And if it's beneficial to your constituency or the community collective, I don't have as much of an issue with it. Like, I believe in win-win. Why not work with your collaborative partners? Yeah. If I needed something that what you had the skill set for, and I wasn't violating anything, of course, I know you, I trust you, that makes sense, right? But then when we have these deals like the Gulch, and Tamara's asking about Atlanta, and recently, these are the numbers on the Gulch. And, for those of you who don't know, the Gulch is this large piece of land that's basically empty parking lots by the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And now that the Super Bowl is coming, and we basically gifted a millionaire tons of taxpayer funds to have his big stadium, we got to clean up downtown because we can't have homeless people all over downtown. And things looking all shabby with the whole world coming here for Super Bowl. And I'm just putting this in plain layman terms because it's so much easier to understand.
So what are we going to do with the homeless people for Super Bowl, Robby? So what's the plan for that?
So that is we're going to cover that, but let me tell you these numbers on the Gulch. And to David's point, this is why when it becomes a problem, the Gulch does not have a local developer, despite there being local developers. They're coming from California. Why would Georgia do that? That doesn't make any sense. And because we don't have, they're not locally grown. Everything is, you help your own, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are the numbers. Property tax on a $5 billion project when it's complete. In 2013, per the developer's schedule, would be $90 million a year. APS, the schools, would be losing $45 million a year, and the city and county $22.5 million a year. The public is putting as much as 50% of the cost to develop a private commercial project, and we as the public will own nothing. So that type of deal, like this arose out of the Reid administration, and it's being carried through by the Bottoms administration. And people are speculating that Mayor Bottoms is Mayor Bottoms because they needed this deal passed, and it would not have happened unless she was in power, which is why Mayor Reid assisted her getting in power. And now all these things that are happening, which we're going to cover, which includes former city councilman Kwanzaa Hall stepping down from Invest Atlanta. Kwanzaa Hall helped Keisha Lance Bottoms get into office. He held a press conference. He was running for mayor. He had about less than 10% of the vote. He was clearly not going to win. And people believe Mayor Reid approached Kwanzaa and said, make this to some degree about race. And so Kwanzaa held a press conference and put all the supporters behind him, who were predominantly Black, and said Kwanzaa's slogan before he was supporting Keisha was Kwanzaa for all of Atlanta. When he stood next to Keisha and supported her and got everyone behind her, his slogan became, if I'm going to stand with somebody, I got to, or no, not if I'm going to stand with somebody, I got to stand with my sister. So you know where that went. And really that's what, and the whole viewpoint was Keisha's from the streets. And we've covered this before. Keisha has, respectfully, again, I have an admiration for the lady. I do. It's difficult to not respect what she's done and who she is, regardless of whether you agree with her, or like her or don't like her. You've got to respect what she's done. But she is not from the streets of Southwest Atlanta. That was a variation, and it worked, and it was a slim margin that they won on, 500 votes. But the problem that I have is that you're not delivering for the people that voted for you. This Gulch project is not delivering for the people that voted for you. You're hiring outside developers with no guarantees. You're taking money from APS, our public schools. Which schools are going to get affected the most by that? Mm-hmm. So that's the problem. It's not so much that you want to work together in conjunction with people who are loyal to you and who you can trust and know. That's okay, as long as it works for everybody. But when it doesn't work for everybody and it only works for some and not the people that you promise things to, that's the problem. No? At least that's how I see it.
That's the problem. I'm with you, Robby. Some days I get speechless, and I'm in politics, but it's like some of the things that happen and the things that people are doing, and it's no words for it. Keep going, Robby.
No, I want this to be because honestly, I just have a perspective on it, and I want to hear other people's perspective on it, because maybe it's not, maybe it's not as bad as I think. Maybe there's a highlight to it that I'm unaware of. Maybe there's something beneficial that could come out of it. I don't know.
Yes, you do know. That's why you're calling it out. You do know.
I really say that a lot, but I'm just asking a question.
You know.
Because half the time I'm not sure about the answers. It just usually leads down a conclusion where it's like, wow, it is this. And you would hope that it wouldn't be, because when you look at these people, and it's not only the elites, it's not only our politicians, it happens on the basic ground. Recently, and I'm glad this is coming up. And by the way, Kwanzaa Hall did have to step down from Invest Atlanta on that job, which was over $100,000 salary. He claimed he didn't know he claimed he didn't know.
I got $100,000 job, y'all, and I don't know it.
Somebody should do a rap song about that. Seriously, that would be hilarious. Anyway. But he said he didn't know, so he stepped down, and a lot of people don't know this, but again, I like Kwanzaa. I know Kwanzaa. I was gonna vote for Kwanzaa. I actually like Kwanzaa. So
this ain't personal, Robby. None of this is personal. So I know it's like you struggle so bad with all this because you are a nice person. Politics is not nice, and these people are not our friends. It's politics.
But the thing that I want people to understand is I would have your back. I would be the first one defending you.
If you were right.
Yes.
But if you're wrong, I'm going to be the first one to call you out. Period. That's why we do the broadcast every week, Robby, because we're going to be the first ones. When you're wrong, you're wrong.
Let's put that on a t-shirt. When you're wrong, you're wrong. Hashtag Chili. What do you think, David? I see your little mind.
Yeah, my little mind. Yeah, it's just,
I just see it all over, just running all over.
The observation that I have is that there is a systematic disenfranchisement and exclusion of working people, but particularly poor working people of color, from any decision-making process that's going on. And part of it is that because they don't have it's almost like a vicious circle, because you are marginalized, you don't have power, and because you don't have power, you're marginalized.
You're right.
And so there are only certain things that can be done. I mean, there are a lot of people out there. I think this is the fundamental conundrum of democratization. Is that you've got people who are alienated, who are excluded from the information, who are in a state of the kind of, I guess I don't want to put people down, by saying it, but a state of desperation, where they're very limited in their time and money resources to be able to take charge, or to even get the information or get together with other people. So naturally, or not naturally, but unnaturally, what happens is that the people who are making $70,000, $80,000 a year, who live in these areas, they go on the neighborhood planning units, right? And they make sure that their voices are heard, and their sense of empathy, or connection with people who are in the more desperate state, is thrown to the side, is kicked to the curb, because they feel themselves to be threatened and vulnerable.
David, we're going to bring Egberto into the broadcast. We're going to get a national political update. He only has a few minutes with us this morning, but we want to bring him in so that we can find out what's happening across the nation. Then we're going to come right back to our conversations about what's happening right here in Georgia. Good morning, Egberto.
Good morning, Miss Sheila. How are you doing today? Hi, Robby. Hi, David.
Hi, Egberto. Good to see you.
What's
Great to see
going
you
on,
guys.
Egberto, across this nation? What's going on?
Well, I hate to bring the big T word into it, but the big T is the name of the game right now. Last night, a news story broke. Oh my God, he told somebody to go out there and lie for him, and the whole news media is going crazy. Oh my God, the end of the world is coming. Trump is finally going to jail. Absolutely not. Trump is a tool, and he is a necessary tool for these guys. This is all a charade, and while we talk real issues, the whole country, with a bad and horrendous media that we have out there, is hyperventilating about Russia, Trump, shut down, and nothing for everybody else that for issues that really matter. So that is the State of the Union.
Oh gosh, Egberto.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I've sat back listening to your conversation, and I do have one little interjection that I'd like to add, and I have this question for David. David, do you think racism is a social construct and nothing more?
That's a really important question. I would not describe it that way. I would say that it's actually a ruling class social control formation. All right. That is very different from simply saying it's a social construct, which is kind of generic and abstract. The white race, and I'm really trying to focus on that aspect, not about identity politics and other things that I think are really a distraction from thinking clearly. There's only one race in this country, and that's the white race. Everybody else is African American, Latinx, or whatever you want to call it. But there is a unique cross-class social formation, the white race, that draws working class white people into the orbit and into the service of the ruling elite by claiming that there is this identity which is reinforced by selective and unequal preferences that are given to European American working people that create the illusion that they have a common interest with the ruling elite, and that has been gradually eroding. In other words, the differences, the status differences, have been gradually eroding, and the opioid epidemic is just one symptom of that erosion. And when you have that kind of erosion and anger and fury, that is the result of the status anxiety, right? The only way to appeal to it, because you can't give them money, the only way to appeal to it is by upping the ante. Trump, it represents the switch from dog whistle to megaphone, right? That's how I see what's going on. I think you're right. He is necessary for the at least temporarily for the ruling elite. But they,
David, let me stop you there, because I really like what you had to say there, and I listened to you a couple of times, and I think that is the plainness you put that, and the most important part that I think you stated there is the portion about the ruling class and bringing white people into believing they're a part of that class. And I don't know if Robby remembers that we had a discussion in the last time when I said I wanted to take a little bit off of race. I don't know if you remember that, Robby.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
And it centers exactly onto a part of what David had to say, and that is the white working class somehow believing that they are Trumpian or they are the same as Trump. And one is the interesting thing about a blog that I wrote a few weeks ago is I brought in Bob Johnson, who is a black guy who started BET. Mm-hmm. He went on CNBC and made some comments, and there was no difference between what he had to say and what the Trump type elites would say, which meant that the reality is the fight really should be what I've always spoken about, and which is until we get the barrios, the ghettos, and Appalachia thinking on the same theme, we aren't solving the problem. And that's the reason I try to take race out of many of the discussions that I talk about.
Yeah. Well, I'm really trying to kind of hold a tension there, because the tension is that race and class interact with each other. They don't. They're not just parallel tracks or or intersections. You know, this is the new language is intersectionality.
Oh, intersectionality. But as a white man, that is, I'll just put it bluntly. As a white man, that's your job. As a white man, it is your job to have white.
Yeah.
As a white man, it is your job. As an enlightened white man, it is your job to enlighten white people to see the truth. Yes. As a black man who white people won't originally or necessarily listen to because they'll be thinking I'm coming from a black perspective, I can show the intersectionality, what you're talking about, the intersectionality of our condition.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as I say, I think of it more as interactionality rather than intersection.
I'll take that.
And and I agree with you absolutely. My position is that I'm a not non-white. Okay. In other words, I use that term white, meaning that this is a people who think and act white, as opposed to thinking and acting as part of the working class. Right. And so class consciousness and white consciousness are at war with each other within individual Europeans, European Americans, and in the society as a whole. And yes, I think you're absolutely right. One of the big issues for us is to figure out a way so that those European Americans who think and act white stop what they're doing. Just stop.
So true.
Let me tell you how not to do it, because I learned the hard way. I thought my pale, privileged self could get in these communities and just reason with logic. And then I learned when that went, look at it. No. Sarah's like, no. All they did was piss everybody off.
Yeah.
There is such an emotional component behind this that has to be factored in delivery.
Well, one of the reasons that I've been suggesting and proposing this idea about stories is because stories are the way in which people listen to one another. You know, I mean, we've been telling stories since, we were hominids, since we could, even just make gestures. We were making gestures before we even knew how to speak. And we were telling stories to one another. And if you pay attention to people's stories without making any judgments about them, because they're your judgments, not theirs, we can move to a point where we change the ending of those stories. Because most stories that people tell are stories about helplessness, that they can't do anything about it. And that's true of a lot of progressives, black and white, people who are activists who are doing their stories, their underlying stories are stories of you can't do anything about this. And I have never, I've always I've always rejected that idea. I don't think that white supremacy is overwhelming. It's historically rooted, and it's based on a bunch of habits that people that white people have constructed, the thinking and acting white. And you can reach them through their stories and through your own stories, which is why last week I brought up that story about the wage differential and what I did under those circumstances. I am by no means a great, example of success of, repudiating white privilege. But I have a few stories, that I could tell of examples of that. And it's that's going to lead European Americans from being tools and agents of the ruling elite to being part of the working class.
Well, look, David, now is the time. Now is really the time, especially now that tax season is around. For all the people that believed what Donald Trump has said about the tax season, the way that they handled the deductions, they gave these big tax cuts to the wealthy, right? And they told the middle class, oh, but we didn't increase your taxes. Well, they didn't. That's partially true. But now when the electrician tries to deduct the tools that he used to deduct, he can't anymore. When the maid or the woman who has that maid service had to buy those supplies, some of those in certain circumstances, no longer deductible. You can point that out succinctly going forward to show folks that after all, guess what? Your master lied to you.
Yeah. That's something that I hadn't been aware of. That all of these deductibles for people that were available before are no longer available. That's really, and of course, what that does is it continues to concentrate wealth into the hands of the 0.1%, but also the 9.9% that's right underneath them. They're the ones who have the ability to do to get the accountants and hire the accountants and get the loopholes that they can to protect their earnings. And so you're absolutely right that people who work for wages, have very, very few, and it's not just this last tax bill, it's going all the way back. People who work for wages don't have any ways of deducting their taxes. And one example of that, which I think is really, really important because it's one of the big illusions, is the income, the mortgage interest.
Interest on mortgage.
Yeah. That mortgage interest deduction is only good if you itemize your taxes. You see.
But if you don't make enough, you cannot itemize, so therefore you don't get to use it.
Well, it's 2/3 of the people who own homes in this country, and it's the bottom 2/3, do not itemize their taxes. So the mortgage interest deduction payment refund is useless to them. And the ones who own homes that are above 500,000, 600,000, et cetera, they're the ones who essentially invest in accounting firms that give them a return on hiring an accountant. You hire for $1,000, let's say, and your taxes are reduced by $5,000. Hey, that's a good deal, right? It's an investment with a very high rate of return. In the meanwhile, public schools and other social services lose that money, right?
Yeah, we spoke a whole lot about that. Actually, I had Tamara on the show. I don't know if you remember Tamara. We spoke about the crisis in the public school system, which all of this boils into as well. But is there anything else that Tamara wants on the national front?
Well, I wanted to kind of before give us like one more minute, Egberto, I wanted you to talk about the shutdown, and you know how I feel about what's going on with this government shutdown. I feel like Democrats and Republicans need to get it together. There was a legislator out in Montana, I believe it was, that introduced a bill, no work, no pay, so that legislators can't continue to get their paychecks if 800,000 plus people in this country aren't getting theirs. So give us 30 seconds, Egberto, on this government shutdown, and then we will have you back next week to continue to give us a national update.
My third thing is I want Nancy Pelosi to play her cards exactly the way she's playing her cards.
No!
I know a lot of people don't like it. She needs to do absolutely nothing, because what America needs to see once and for all is what this president is going to do, and it's going to hurt a lot of people. A lot of people will be hurt, and the economy is going to suffer. But that is better to handle that now than to wait for the debt crisis that's going to come in March, in which case he would have proven that he can hold the country hostage. Better to hold it on this government shutdown than to have to fight this battle again with the upcoming things.
But the tragedy is people. Like, It's not like this is just affecting money in the economy. This is people. These are people's lives that we're.
I understand. You're absolutely right. The unfortunate thing is that the next battle is not only going to affect not only going to affect a few people. It's going to affect the world itself, because the debt ceiling crisis that's going to come in March. Nobody really knows how serious that is. It is very, very serious. And the problem is we have a very unintellectual president in office who really does not understand economics, who does not understand anything about reality. And he is the one who is liable to tip the balance. And once that balance is tipped, it's over for the country.
And I, you know what, Egberto, I will agree with you there. I was thinking about this just this morning, that there's a difference between strategies in a boardroom and then strategies working in government. And he's really like this showdown that they're having is something that you use in a boardroom with and this is dollars and cents, but he doesn't understand.
Right.
This is
Mara, he's never been in a boardroom. He's never been in a boardroom. He doesn't know how to run a corporation.
Right.
I mean, he has run things. What he is a putanito.
Charlatan.
I mean, he's a little oligarch who's been trying to figure out how to become a big oligarch, and that's not that. I really agree with Egberto about this. He is operating out of well, anyway, there's
look, if he got David speechless, he's bad, because nobody holds David speechless.
He's running a little organized crime syndicate, and Michael Cohen is his rat. Michael Cohen is now ratting him out. So I mean, this is the way that they got the mafia to in the 80s and 90s. They find somebody who's vulnerable, and he becomes the informer.
Okay, well, you know what? We'll have Egberto back next week.
Yeah,
Egberto, I'm going to trust you and David on this one. This is like what we need for the moment. But it pisses me off, and it makes me very angry, uncomfortable. It's because I feel like we need to fix it. We need to fix it now. But I'm going to trust you guys on this. Okay, David.
If Tamara says she trusts David and Egberto, now it's time for me to go. You guys have a wonderful rest of the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Good luck, huh, Egberto? Well, I did want to say a few things. I don't know. We only have a few minutes left, but I really was been thinking about this class I've been teaching about the New Deal, and some of the ways in which I think we really should devote some time in a future show to understanding what the 1930s and 40s New Deal was actually about, because it really recreated the whole system of white supremacy and white privilege in the new setting of the Depression. And when we hear people on the left, Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez talking about a New Deal, and now this new terminology, a Green New Deal, I have real questions about following up, about resting this new strategy on the assumption that the New Deal was a progressive force. It was not. The New Deal was run by the Southern Dixiecrats, by the white supremacists who were out to protect and preserve the Jim Crow white supremacy system in the South. And they did more than that. They extended it throughout the entire country. So all of the things that happened in the New Deal, it actually created the system in which the new generation of European immigrants who had been so exploited and subordinated in the period from 1900 to the New Deal, were brought into the white race. They were integrated.
Yeah, so we're going to stop there, David, because I want to give these last couple minutes to Robby so that we can pick up where we left off with the Atlanta conversation and what's happening in the ATL. David, we'll definitely have to continue to talk about this, because the Green New Deal is something that's definitely out there, and a lot of us don't know, including myself. I don't really know a whole lot about it, so we're going to lean on you to kind of really fill us in on what that says and in comparison to what it said. So we'll definitely talk about that in the future. Robby.
And kudos to you, David, for bringing that up, because regards to the history, basically the context of it, nobody does that anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's a problem because we don't know where we came from. We don't know the context. Right. We don't know the lineage and why we're reacting to how we're reacting, whether it's a personal or a group of people or a subculture and so on. I'm really excited about that. Mm-hmm. The other thing I kind of wanted to, I'm all crushing on David right now. It's really difficult for people who have privilege, myself included. I have light skin privilege. I was born in a family that worked really hard, so I had an example of work ethic, etc. Mm-hmm. And when you are given that, it's really hard to see another perspective unless you are ridiculously open, or you research, or you've had life experiences that require you to see beyond. Right. So I'm listening to you, David, and I'm like, you're very institutional about it when you explain. So it's on a very high level. Sometimes I literally have to listen to you and kind of go over it to get the context in layman's terms. But the subject matter that you bring up is impressive. And it's impressive that it's coming from you, and it actually has to be from you to be as effective. Mm-hmm. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's really encouraging. And, just to mention, when I first came to Atlanta, I lived on Martin Luther King Drive. I lived in an apartment complex on Martin Luther King Drive for a year. So, and I had been an activist before then, but living in a, 99.9% Black, poor, working class Black community really was even for somebody who was as, quote, woke as I was when I moved in there. I really understood, things from a very different perspective than a much more real perspective. And I could see how much the system was stacked against the people who were my neighbors. I mean, I really, really was able to see. I mean, you cannot make a mistake when you're in that income bracket and in the location, in the circumstances. You make one mistake and you could end up homeless.
Right. It's expensive to be poor. And back to kind of what Tamara's, saying, and I'm still here in this community that's transitioning, and I think that gives me, the perspective that I'm able to kind of see it. People are always approaching me, organizers, and saying, well, we've got to organize these people. And even people look down on people who don't go to the NPU, and it's like, do you understand this person literally cannot go to this meeting? Literally either can't get there, can't take off work. I mean, their hours or whatever, or can't show up because they're unbathed and homeless.
Yes.
And it's those circumstances. And they're telling me, organize these people. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, do you understand what we're dealing with here?
We're going to wrap up right there, Robby. We're at the top of the hour. I want to thank everybody for joining us on this week's broadcast of Tamara for Georgia, where we talk Georgia politics and all things Georgia. We're going to go on a field trip. I want you to again save the date on February the 8th. I am working on something. I'll let you guys know next week specifically where we're going to be, but we are going on a field trip. I'm very excited. We kind of got to start taking this thing on the road, because guess what? There's a lot of things in Georgia that we are not seeing, we're not privy to, and we want to make sure we bring it to the broadcast. So again, I am Tamara Johnson-Shealy. I want to thank my trusty co-host, Ms. Robby Caban and Mr. David Slavin, for always, bringing the heat and holding these people accountable. So again, let's put our websites on, right here. David, you can find him on Facebook at Acknowledge the Divide, where we talk race, racism, and race relations, making sure we bringing white people and black people and brown people to the table. Let's realizing that there is a divide. Let's acknowledge it so that we can move forward as a nation and as a country. Robby, you can find her on Facebook at the NPU Resident Public Forum. I'm talking fast, trying to get us out of here. But again, NPU Resident Public Forum. You can always reach Robby there. And of course, Mr. Egberto Willies, Mr. Politics Done Right himself, www.politicsdoneright.com. He does a national broadcast. He's based out of Texas. He brings it too. So I want to thank him for joining us on this broadcast. And again, I am Tamara Johnson-Shealy. You can find more information about this broadcast, what we're doing, and everything on our brand new website. It's www.tamaraforgeorgia.com. So this broadcast is dedicated to Georgia and all things Georgia. And I want to thank again my trusty co-hosts and those of you that have watched us this week. Share this broadcast. Help us get our followers, our viewers. We are on YouTube as well, but go to tamaraforgeorgia.com and start following us as we build this thing that we're doing here. And I'm super excited about it. Robby and David, thank you.
Thank you so much. All the things going on in Atlanta are in that forum. And tomorrow there's an event with Song, who are some grassroots organizer that's great. Tomorrow, Saturday in West End, I'll put it up in the forum at noon if people can make it.
Awesome. All righty. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week.